This video will show how filtering works in ToroCube. So for any chart that is available, you can filter the dimensions that are available to you. All the filtering data is listed here, and there's a bit of a visual clue here. When everything is selected in a dropdown, all the values are selected, then the dropdown is green. This button clears all the selections. So if I were to do that, the color will change, and visually I would know just by looking at this that there's nothing selected in this drop down. If I want to select everything again, all I have to do is click this button and it turns green again. If I were to only have a partial selection, so let's say manufacturer, I'm going to take out one manufacturer, include pharma. When I do that, the drop down turns yellow, and that tells me that there's partial selection here. So pretty much anywhere here I can do this. Something like Medra PT would obviously have a lot of choices, and you can filter out the ones you don't want, or and probably end up with a partial selection, something like LT, LLT, PT, or any of the other dimensions. What you will also see in some cases is something like this. This is a drop down for the dimension name itself. And the reason is because if I see here, there's two dimensions available to me, either reporter country or reporter authorization country. So what this is basically from a filtering perspective, these dimensions are mutually exclusive. So I can either filter on product authorization country, or I can filter on reporter country, but not both. The reason this is that way is because the administrator, when they set up a ToroCube, they basically take the data source, they lay out which data is going to be where, how it's going to work, and part of that decision making is to say which of these dimensions are going to be mutually exclusive. And the reason for that is usually because conflicting data occurs. For example, if you're going to the other place we see this is dates. So you can either filter on event date, event month, or FDA notification date in this case. And the reason is, for example, I don't want in this case, I was the admin, I set it up, but perhaps the admin doesn't want the user to make mistakes like pick the event date and say, give me everything for 2020, and then pick the FDA notification date and say, give me everything for 2022, because there's no case that would fit that criteria where the event occurred. Well, most likely there isn't a case where the event occurred in 2020 and the FDA notification occurred in 2022. So that would really, those dates would be in conflict with each other very easily. So there's probably very little value to be gained by filtering on both of those. So then these dates were set up as or these dimensions were set up as mutually exclusive. So you can only filter on one at a time. Now that we're looking at dates in this case, the way the dates, filtering on dates works is a little different. So by default, it says custom range, and what we're offered is the earliest available date and the last available date. So I know that the sample data here is from January of 2022 to the end of May 2022. So if I were to go here, let me just go here. You can see the third is the earliest date I can select. I cannot select 2 or 1 because we simply don't have the data for that. Similarly, 30th of May is the last date I can select. I cannot select anything beyond that because my data simply doesn't exist beyond that. So I can narrow this range for sure because this is a custom range. So I can say perhaps I only want data for February of 2022, and I can easily do that. But there's a couple other things available. So custom range is very easy, but those dates are hard coded. But let's say I want to save this report, and there's a video for saving report, how to save report and publish it. But let's say I do want to save the report, and when I save the report, I want to run it weekly. If I run it weekly, I don't want to hard code my dates and say I'm only looking at February or I'm only looking at March. I want my dates to be dynamic and basically do that automatically. And by choosing these, I can, because here I can perhaps pick the latest day. And what it does is if I pick latest day, then when I rerun this report, if it's saved, it will show me data for the latest day, whatever that latest day in my data set is. Right now, for this sample, it's 30th of May. But it doesn't have it. But as time progresses and more data is entered, the latest day changes, obviously. Similarly, I can say the latest 7 days, and then I will see the 7 days worth of, only the last 7 days worth of data, or perhaps the last 30 days worth of data. Current week. Now, when we talk about week, most places a week would be Monday through Sunday. So starting from Monday and ending on Sunday. But perhaps in other parts of the world, week may start, let's say, on a Saturday and end on a Friday. Whatever the case may be, in ToroAdmin, the administrator can basically select the day that the week starts on. So when you say current week here, the system knows when the week starts. So if this were chosen for the report, then anytime the report is run, data for the current week would run. In North America, it's Monday that the week starts on. So if you were running the report on Wednesday and you only had data till Tuesday, because generally you wouldn't have today's data, it's still being created, then you would see only Monday and Tuesday's worth of data in your report. If you were running the report on Saturday, you would see Monday through Friday for that week. You can also pick previous week, current month, again, month to date really in this case, because if you're running on the 15th, you're going to see data from the 1st to the 14th. You can see previous month's data, current year's data, or previous year's data. So besides the current range, which sort of hard codes these dates, all the other choices allow you to run the report with dynamic dates. Based on where you are in time, the range of data for the dates will be based on that. So dates can be very dynamic in ToroCube. And the other kind of data that you can filter on is range. So when you're looking at range, in this case, we have a dimension called days case open. Now, this is defined as a range. So when it's range, you can actually see that you can leave it alone. Obviously, the default is blank, which means we're totally ignoring days case open. It can be any value. But you may want to say that I want it to be equal to a certain value or less than some value. It defaults to 100,000, but less than some value or greater than a value. And finally, you can choose to have that range between two values. When you run the report, that whatever you've just selected as your criteria for days case open, data will be selected based on that criteria. So, and you can have and obviously from a filtering perspective, you don't need to filter on 1 or 2 or 3 dimensions. You can filter on as many dimensions as you choose, and all of those filters will be combined together, and data will conform to those constraints. That should do it for filtering. Thank you for watching.